everybody going? How's everybody doing?
Good.
How's everybody doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Huge turnout for the restaking staking
Great.
stuff.
Gigantic.
Well, welcome everybody. Title of this panel is Restaking, Innovation, or Centralization. Just show of hands, everybody know what restaking is in this group? Excellent, excellent.
It's actually really impressive.
I think that's 100%.
Yeah,
actually.
it's 100%.
That's fantastic.
That's good.
My name is Dave Rodman. I am the managing partner at the Rodman Law Group. We are a Web3 focused law firm here in Denver, Colorado. Represent all sorts of cool projects in the space. We've got, I see at least one client in the audience, one client on the stage. So I'm excited to be here and moderate. I'll turn it over to you, Vanessa, to introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Vanessa Pestritto, founder of Electric Gems. I have experience as a venture capitalist and at a layer one, and I work with Web3 projects and also make investments.
Hey, my name's Rock. I'm one of the co-founders of EtherFi. Most people know EtherFi for our liquid restaking token, and that's kind of how we got up and going. But it's one of our 3 products. What we're really trying to do is build essentially a neobank that's fully on crypto rails. So allowing people to save, invest, and spend their crypto without having to offboard into fiat. So that's really the mission of what we're trying to do now. And so one of the core products is our liquid restaking token, wrapped ETH. Thanks for having us.
And I'll close it off. My name is Chunda. I'm one of the co-founders of Nucleus. We build yield infrastructure and liquidity management infrastructure, as well as tokenization infrastructure for L1s, L2s, DeFi protocols, and DeFi primitives. So we enable them to kind of optimize any pre-existing kind of financial primitives they have, as well as tokenize both on and off-chain asset flows.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So given the title, Restaking, Innovation, or Centralization, I want to ask each one of you what that means to you and where you fall on that spectrum. It's been framed as a potential game changer, but also as a risk factor. Who would like to take that?
I can kind of kick it off there. I think so. I think the first question that most people in the audience would probably have when it comes to kind of answering that is, what do you mean by centralization? Like, what exactly is that risk that could exist? And the way that I kind of look at that question is that restaking effectively takes what was traditionally thought of as more like an individual action of validating a network. You know, the vision of, eventually everyone could run an Ethereum node, or, some networks like Celestia allow you to run light clients on your phone. And it really kind of takes that and flips that on its head and says, well, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to take these like large entities who run these like professional node operating systems and then enable them to secure pretty much all of the decentralized networks that will ever exist in crypto in general. And I do think that, is restaking a kind of centralizing factor for validators and validating services? Yes. But was the writing on the wall before restaking even kind of came on board? There was a lot of contention about, the validator size being too large and Ethereum being slower as a byproduct, worries about like state retrieval in the long run. And so a lot of the kind of limitations of ETH scaling were limited by validator set size, and a lot of discussions around validator set centralization was already occurring at the Ethereum level even before restaking. So is it centralizing? Yes. But I think the kind of writing was a little bit on the wall before it came into play.
Would either of you like to add to that?
Well, on the innovation side, I think there were like 2 things. One, restaking was brought in because people got all their tokens in the beginning. Years ago when we were getting into crypto, we all decided to hold our tokens so then we could stake them. And that was a nice little internal thing to do for the existing crypto audience. A lot of education for newcomers. And then, yet again, let's do restaking as the next thing. So I think there's been this internal aspect to still try to find more to do with our crypto when we really need adoption. But one can argue we're on a 30-year life cycle, but I still think we need to work hard to get more people in. So on the innovation side, I think restaking as a concept is entertaining and there is some value, things like with EtherFi or Veda, which also helps power EtherFi. But The other side for innovation is that we want to see people build, like launch AVSs, and we're not seeing enough of that yet. So I think there needs to be much more effort in that space. But I think it's just challenging for anyone new coming into crypto who thinks I have to launch a token, but do it on an AVS because it's easier. It's still a lot to take in.
Rock, it's been about 2 years since EigenLayer launched, and well, I don't think it's a controversial opinion to say that we don't really have a killer use case yet. Are we missing? Are we missing something? What do we need to do to get that killer use case?
It's a really good question. So I think a couple things. Restaking is still really new in the grand scheme of things. We are really impatient in crypto. If we're being honest, like the centralization stuff, I think what people care about and what's going to bring people into crypto is higher yields. So yes, restaking is giving higher yields right now, but it's not sustainable long term because it's just being supplemented by the Eigen token, right? So you need new use cases and killer apps to actually build here. I think one of the big issues with restaking, just for normal people to build on it, is how like complex like the words are, like in kind of adapting it. And so I think making it simple and more marketable for builders who are outside of crypto to come in and build. Like one analogy I've kind of used is like, if you use a website, you don't think of like, oh, what servers are they on? Like, are they AWS? Are they Google Cloud? Like, you don't think about that. And so if we can get to that point where people understand it's like, it should be more cost effective, I guess, to build on top of EigenLayer or Symbiotic or whatever shared security platform. I think that is like a big win. But ultimately, what users care about, what's going to drive more users, is higher yields. And so the supply side of like actual ETH to be shared or BTC or whatever it is, like the shared security is fine. We just need a lot more builders on top. So Redstone is launching an AVS and they're launching a token and they're going to pay with a token, which is that's a huge win. But like you need that at like 100 or 200x scale. And so I think that's a big challenge for the EigenLayer and the Symbiotic BD teams to like get a lot of building and make it really compelling for people to build there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the original selling points of restaking was that it would generate extra yield, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't many LRTs earning less than just basic staking at this point?
Maybe, but maybe they're just not like allocated then. So the base staking yield is about 3%. EtherFi's APY like 30 days is 4.3%. So like 50% more, but it's still lower. Like go back 3 years ago, staking yields were 8, 9, 10%. Staking yields, right? Like so, the risk of that for 3 to 4%. Like honestly, if you look at our usage, people aren't there just to stake. They're there to stake and then go do some crazy shit in DeFi. So
fair. What if you take the token emissions out? What are we looking at?
Then it's just staking yield. Yeah, for sure. So, but the dream is that Eigen doesn't have to continue to like supplement that. Maybe they'll continue to pay for DA or whatever, but other AVSs will use their tokens to pay out. So that's like I said, Redstone doing that is amazing. It's huge. And you need to get like more of that built. But EigenLayer needs to figure out the market dynamics, I guess, on that to encourage AVSs to pay out and see enough value to pay out with their tokens.
So I'll throw this to the whole panel. Whoever wants to take it can take it. But I think we're starting to see slashing going live across a couple of platforms. How do you think that users should be thinking about this in general?
It's a very good question. In fact, I'd say it has been the question that's been kind of lingering over restaking ever since the idea was created, right? I think it's also going to be the true stress test on whether or not people are willing to keep their capital in restaking platforms. In terms of how users should think about slashing, I think there's kind of two things that I think everyone should kind of keep in mind. One is first about kind of awareness and knowledge. So when you're interacting with the restaking platform, whether it's an LRT like EtherFi or directly with like EigenLayer Symbiotic, this is a completely different dynamic than traditional staking. Like the game has completely changed. The similar way that we think about kind of assessing like solvency risk at a financial level with, let's say, like a financial derivative, not that the risk is the same, but that level of scrutiny and discipline when it comes to understanding what's going on underneath the hood, I think also needs to be extended to restaking products and restaked assets. The second thing, I think, which also is interesting, is that with innovation comes additional risk, and not additional risk in the sense that, oh, you're going to build new things and new things may break, but new things may intentionally have a purpose on why they may be slashed. And those slashing constraints are like definitely going to be much more frequent than Ethereum has. I think in the history of Ethereum, there's less than 500 slashing events to ever occur in the history of proof of stake being live. That might not be the case with restaking. I think there is going to have to be some sense of kind of acclimating to this reality that people are going to get slashed. And there are going to be different applications that slash for different reasons, but people should be aware that that will be a reality and to understand why. And maybe in certain cases, it's not always a bad thing. And that it might be a part of like kind of the product or feature that they're opting into.
So to build on that for either one of you two who want to take this one, do you think that restaking is riskier than originally advertised?
No. I
Proper
don't.
disclaimers were written?
Well, staking is, again, this is a market dynamic that needs to play out. Eigenlayer is just turning on staking. A lot of protocols who are building it are saying, well, hold on, like, no. And then Symbiotic started with slashing, but the basically each, what they call a network or protocol, gets to set their own slashing terms. So I completely agree with Chunda that restaking will have slashing events, but like the market dynamics are still so immature because there's not enough incentive for protocols to turn on, to like say yes to slashing, and capital, if slashing is turned on, is certainly not getting enough return to say yes to that, right? So I think we'll see some of those market dynamics play out. Again, it's an industry that's 2 years old, and like there's $30 billion in it. So I feel like the industry in general is like really good. We're just impatient in crypto, and we're like, why isn't this shit here like now? But the next couple years and getting builders and getting incentives to users is super, super important.
I was going to say, building confidence in putting your crypto into a new application or in a smart contract that is new. I mean, yes, you have this high level of assets that are being restaked. That's a good signal for people to have more confidence in participating. But as a newcomer or people who've been around for a while who've lost funds in some smart contracts that were already had a lot of AUM, but I think that's where the risk still is because there are issues or challenges around Solidity smart contracts still. And I am an investor in the space. I do believe in it, but I think that's always one side that will keep newcomers from continuing to want to participate.
Well, I think to build on that, and also I know that you have some experience in other ecosystems. What are your thoughts on restaking in other non-ETH ecosystems?
So I was in the Cosmos ecosystem. I still have assets there. They were turning on this different liquid restaking tokens and protocols. I like that. The one that I was talking to the most, I think, was just Drop, where they were putting together commitments for people to already start in order to have liquidity in the space. But I've not spent enough time to go further on that.
Fair. We're getting closer to the end of time, but I want you guys to all get to answer this one if you want. And we'll start with you, Rock. What is the most interesting AVS use case for restaking that you've seen personally?
Or one of, you don't have to pick your favorite, so you don't have to pick favorites.
I mean, there's several things that are being built right now that are interesting. I guess the pre-confirmation stuff is probably like the best use case, I guess, that I've seen. And actually, Oracle's probably. So like Redstone and eOracle, I think, are the first two that are going live, and both will pay out in tokens on Eigenlayer. So that probably is the best use case. the pre-confirmation space, again, a lot of market dynamics to figure out there with the validators in the market. But I'm very interested to see how that one plays out because I think there's a lot of potential in pre-confs.
I think on my end, I'll cheat because it's kind of not an AVS, but it's a use case that's dependent on restaking. Protocol called Kopp Labs. They're focusing on like kind of financializing.
Also a client.
Also a client. Shout out.
Rodman
Shameless
Law Group,
promotion.
Denver, Colorado.
But a really fascinating use case on saying like, okay, how can we use restaked collateral to actually support financial activities, and not financial activities on chain, financial activities off chain from large institutions, which I think is a really out of the box and innovative use case for restaked collateral that, although may share some risks, is I think an experiment worth pouring some resources into.
So I guess also restaking adjacent is, I mentioned earlier, Veda Labs. I'm an investor, just as a disclosure, and they're helping increase the overall participation in several protocols, including EtherFi. And it's just, I think, making it easier for people to participate without having to have that intimidating initial risk and otherwise that might be out for them.
All right, last one. If we're having this same panel 1 year from now at ETHDenver, what do you think has changed in the restaking ecosystem?
What do I think has changed, or what has to change?
Either one.
It is super important that there's AVSs or networks that are paying out tokens. So I would say, like, fast forward from now, 25 or 30, like more than 25 or 30 protocols on both EigenLayer and Symbiotic that are paying out with paying rewards with a token.
EigenLayer has to prove that this is going to make it 100%. So aligned with that.
AVSs need to have their revenue models correlated with restaking. If there's no monetary incentive or shared economics with restaking at the protocol level, it's not going to work.
All right, well, I think we did almost perfectly on time. Thank you all for listening to us and letting us pontificate. Thank you to our panel. And I think that's it.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thanks, guys.